Still, there we go. I think we've got that. We are live on Facebook. Hello, hello. And we're about to add on our Instagram friends here. Gonna go live with them. And then are we going to have fun? I am so excited. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about my guest today. This is going to be such a fun chat. And those of you who come all the time, you know the drill. Ring in, tell us where you're coming in from. And hopefully we're going to get a lovely turnout for the amazing Janice Bangs. And I met Janice, oh my gosh, we were talking, we think it's probably been 10 years. I used to get to once in a while be a little guest on the TV show she produced, AM Northwest in Oregon. And Janice was the producer there. And I love it because Janice actually gave me some tips. It was like, Sheila, and you do this, and you do this, and you did this wrong, and now do this. And it was awesome. It was like getting my own media training class. So I still remember that, how gracious you were and so helpful every time I would come to be on the show. And hi, some of the gang has come in. I see Beverly has made it. And Diane's here from New Jersey. We've got Pam coming in from Tennessee. And oh, okay, Beverly, you're coming in from Minnesota. All right, this is great. You guys are going to love hearing Janice's story because it's just such an interesting, even if you don't have kids or grandkids, this is an interesting writing story to see how after many years she finally made a dream come true. But we're going to back up and just find out a little bit about how you started out. I mean, I think that's a pretty sexy job all in itself. You're being a TV talk show producer. How did you end up with a job like that? That is really pretty cool.
So for me, that is really my origin story. So I actually got a degree in finance. People think I got a communications degree, but I went to the University of Washington and got a degree in finance. And then after I graduated, and I worked the whole time I was there. It took me 5 years to make it through school. And then I worked another couple. So I worked there a total of 7 years at the University Bookstore in Seattle. And one day, I was about a year from graduation, the HR gal, Nikki, came down. So the University Bookstore back in the day was like a department store. It had a gift shop. It had men's and women's clothing. It had luggage. It had a music department, electronics, plus books, plus textbooks. It was an amazing store. So I worked in men's and women's clothing. And Nikki came down and she said, we got this application for a pageant. And you're the only person I could think of that works for the company that, might be good for this. And I was a little insulted. I felt like I was a serious business major. What in the world would I be doing in a pageant? Not to mention, shoot, how old was I? I think I was almost 22. I had no pageant experience.
Oh my God.
And so I called my mom, who worked with my dad, and I said, what do you think about this pageant idea? And I said, because I'm not for it. And she's like, yeah, you're going to need dresses for that. You don't have a car. And I'm like, yeah, what am I going to do? Bus it around town in a gown and crown? Like, that's not going to work. So we're just like, yeah, no. So I tore up the application, didn't think anything more of it. My mom calls me 2 or 3 days later and says, hey, Emily, my dad's hygienist, her daughter was in this pageant. It's called the Seafair pageant in Seattle.
Oh my gosh, Seafair.
Seafair. So she says, Emily says, I forget Emily's daughter's name. I'm just going to say Rhonda. Rhonda was a Seafair princess, and it was great for business connections because you do all this stuff with the Rotary clubs and the communities. And so, honey, and this was back in the early 80s, I'll make your dresses if you need dresses. You can borrow our car if you need a car. And why don't you go ahead and try? And I was like, okay. So I went back upstairs to Nikki and I'm like, hey, can I get that application for that pageant again? And she's like, that's the only one we had. You're going to have to go to the business now to get another application. And I'm just like, oh, crap. Okay. So I, march myself to the business. I get the application. I do I don't know, the pageant for Miss University District, which thank God was not actually a pageant. It was just an interview. So these judges interviewed all of us at a dinner and got to know us. And then somehow I magically became Miss University District.
Wow.
So what I didn't know, that this led to the Seafair pageant. And the Seafair pageant was a scholarship pageant. And there was evening gown, but no bathing suit or anything. It just was very wholesome pageant. But big production numbers. It was televised on King TV, and you had to have a talent. Okay, well, I got no talents. I can't. I cannot sing. I cannot dance. I can't. In the 80s, in the aerobics classes, I got kicked out because I was going like this when you're supposed to be going like this. I'm like, I don't play the piano. What am I don't have any talent. So I used to play the viola. I played the viola for 6 years, from like 4th grade through 9th grade. But when I got to high school, I just thought it was too uncool to carry a viola case. So I quit. So it'd been like 7 years since I played my viola. So I'm like, oh, well, I mean, I guess I got to break out my viola, and I got to come up with a talent for this. So, I did. But I'm working, going to school, whatever. I'm doing this pageant. We've got parades and stuff that we're supposed to be doing. And so I'm trying. I'm going back to my crummy little apartment, and I'm trying very hard to. And I'm telling you, a viola is like this. It's one string different than a violin. It is not like riding a bike. Not even close. Not even close.
No.
So there was a pageant choreographer. So we had to do all these dance numbers for this. It was kind of like a Miss America production. They always had me in the back row. If you were to watch the televised portion, Janice is up in the screen in the far corner. They got me as far away from the cameras as possible because, again, I'm going like this when you're supposed to be going like this. So the pageant choreographer comes up takes me aside one day. It's a week before the televised pageant, and says to me, your viola playing. And I go, yeah, I know. It sounds like a cat being spun around by the tail. He's like, yeah, basically, that's right. And he goes, but you're kind of the pageant clown. And when I'm like, ow, rude. But I didn't take it seriously. There were girls who had been in so many pageants. I'd never been in one. I was old enough to go out afterwards and have a margarita. And, these girls were not. And so I didn't take it seriously. I didn't know the pageant business. They'd come up and say, how many crowns do you have? And I would go, what? So he's like, okay, you're kind of the pageant clown. Have you ever thought about telling jokes and playing your viola? And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, why don't you go home and write a routine? And why don't you do that? And I was like, okay, so on top of everything else I've got going on, now I got to come up with a routine. So I did. So on the night that it's televised, so we had a pre-thing the night before, and I somehow made it in to the top 10. And the top 10 had to perform their talent on the stage, live in front of a studio audience and live on television.
Wow.
So I get up there, and then I stop, and then I tell a joke. And basically I tell a joke about how horrific my playing is. And then I'm totally honest. I say, I always wanted to play the zither. I didn't want to play the viola, but my parents said, if you play the viola, we'll get you a zither. I'm still waiting for my zither. And then I tell another joke. Anyway, so the audience they were dying. So I think honestly, they were so relieved I wasn't going to keep playing. So it's the first year in the history of the pageant, 1982, that they gave out a scholarship for talent.
Wow.
I won that scholarship.
No way.
Yes,
Oh my gosh.
Little Miss No Talent, really, honestly, negative talent, won the talent competition. Again, I think they were just so relieved I wasn't going to play anymore.
Oh my gosh.
They gave me a pity scholarship. So
That is so funny. You really were like Miss Congeniality. I mean, with your little extra little glasses. Oh my gosh, that's just hilarious. Well, okay, so you got a scholarship, so life is good.
So I'm so sorry. So then that's how I got introduced to TV. So then I graduated a year later, and I didn't want to be responsible for other people's money. I just didn't know what I wanted to do with my degree. And I thought, those people in TV, they look like they were having fun, because they followed us around all summer and then did little pieces that showed during the televised pageant, and I thought that looks like fun. And so I called them, and because I was the pageant clown, I had stayed in touch with a couple of the producers, and I went on an informational interview to find out, how do you get into TV? And I had to go back to school to Bellevue Community College for 2 more years to get a media tech degree so I could get an internship at King TV in Seattle. And that's how I got into TV.
That's amazing. An internship saved payment, yeah. So you're still kind of
No,
paying your dues.
I still had to work and go to school and do the internship. Yeah. Yeah. So, but that one person changed the course of my life.
That is, what a great story. I tell you what, those of you watching after the fact, I hope you're going to watch after the fact, because you're missing out on such a fun interview so far. I love it. Pam says, I'm doing the math. Darn, you look fantastic. Yes, she does. Well, this beauty pageant. I remember, oh my gosh, going out. There were a couple different times we would go out to eat after I'd done a show, or we'd come in early and hang out. And I remember her taking a picture of us at one point, and it's like, oh, Miss Pretty and we're like Beauty and the Beast. And I'm like, you can guess which one was the Beast. I'm like, I'm not taking this picture. I'm cutting my half out and keeping Janice. So it was like,
Sheila Roberts, you are the most vivacious, fun, beautiful person ever.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, so this is you guys, but fortunately, I didn't have to be on screen with Janice when I was doing interviews, although Helen was really cute too. But anyway, I say hi, some of you who joined in. I'm trying to keep track as you come in. Just a hi to Becky. As we had Becky, Deanne, and who else have we got in here? I can't even read my writing. Carolyn, and someone who's, I can't read my writing. Anyway, you guys who have joined us late, thank you. We are talking with Janice Bangs about her very interesting, how her life has morphed from one thing to another, going from TV producer to children's book author. There's a whole nother story there. But before we move to that, I just for fun want to ask, was there any celebrity that you interviewed over the years or that you worked with that you thought was really fun?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to do what they call press junkets, which is back in the day, they would fly all the reporters from around the country, from the major markets, into like Los Angeles. This was part of the movie's marketing budget. And then they would take over the floor of a hotel, and they would take a room, like, let's pretend this is a room in the hotel, and they would drape blackout curtains everywhere, and they'd put 2 chairs and 2 microphones and then 2 lights. And you as journalists would be sitting out in the hall, and let's say the journalist from Denver is ahead of you. So they go in, they sit in the chair, the celebrity sits in the chair, and you have your 5 minutes to interview the celebrity about whatever movie it is they're promoting. Like I did, I'm going on Lethal Weapon 4. Okay, so I'm with Mel Gibson. Okay, so you have your 5 minutes to say hello and then do your interview, and then you leave, and then the next journalist comes in. So I got to meet hundreds of movie stars that way. And some of them are great. You find out real quickly that they're just people. Sometimes they're having a good day. Sometimes they're having a bad day. Sometimes they're introverts. Sometimes they're extroverts. I remember when I did, I think it was called The Out of Towners with Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn.
Oh, I love Steve Martin so much.
Yes. So, and Goldie was delightful, honestly, really. Just how you would hope she would be. But they put them together. So it was you with them because Steve is an introvert.
I have
And
read that in his biography that he's because and he doesn't seem like it on screen because he's
right. Yeah. And it also makes sense why he and Martin Short are like such best friends because Martin, I've interviewed Martin as well. He's so funny. He's very much an extrovert and Steve is an introvert. And I know Helen would agree with this. Helen, the host of AM Northwest. Robin Williams was one of our all-time favorites, just the most generous, giving interviewee. He worked really hard to give you a really great interview to take back to your hometown. Some of them you could tell they did not want to be there.
Yeah.
It was like pulling teeth.
Well, and they've talked to 8 million of you, and I've got to imagine after a while the same questions over and over again. You're just ready to pull your hair out, right?
Oh, sure. And you're in a dark room and you're hungry and it's hot. And yeah, exactly. So I felt sympathy for some of them. And then, at one point in my life, I thought I wanted to be the next Meryl Streep. So when I got to interview Meryl Streep, I was over the moon. And you would want her to hang with you. She was really like just any other mom driving their kids to school in the carpool lane and very just so warm and so gracious. Let's see. And after a while, you don't get so nervous. But one I was nervous with was Eddie Murphy. He's very much a notorious. He also is kind of an introvert. And
really? Oh.
Yeah. And he doesn't like to do these interviews. And so I actually had sweaty palms. I'm not a sweater, but my palms were sweaty.
That would be very, very nerve-wracking. I gotta say, Lori asked an interesting question. She says, why didn't they do a group interview like a press conference? Like you'd all be in the room and they'd bring the the stars in. Is there a reason that you would do that one at a time?
Yeah, so that you could go back to your hometown with your interview if they did it as a big group, then that would be more like one of those White House press things. So
no cachet for no big cachet for your particular show.
Correct.
So that's why we want to do the one-on-one. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. Yes. And then you would go back to your town with this great interview with otherwise, yeah, right, there wouldn't really be a point in sending to be part of a big pod of people. It's a personal interview. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, so here she is, guys. She's living the life. And wouldn't you think that would be enough to keep the girl happy? But you did have this cute little book idea, and I want you to quickly tell everybody how this started. By the way, you guys, if you want to see her full interview with AM Northwest, can they just Google that and Google Janice Bangs interview, AM Northwest, and would it come up?
Oh, the Mama Duck one? Yeah, they could go to katu.com and then there's a drop down for AM Northwest and then there's a drop down for book authors. So
that might be fun, but we're going to get the interview here too. So tell us a little bit how this began, and you had some stumbles along the way. I think this is going to be interesting for people, especially those watching who are writers and are going, this is taking forever. So let's hear the story.
Okay, so 25 years ago, I came up with a story idea, which is really Mama Duck's Lost Duckling, which has not changed much in the 25 years. And I actually sent it out. I spent a lot of time with the Children's and Writers Illustrated book. I'm sure your writers out there know what I'm talking about. And back in the day, big publishing companies you could still find some that would take a submission from an unagented author, which I was. And you would query them. And then in the case of a picture book, you could just, because it's only 3 pages, you just sent them the whole manuscript. And so I spent a couple of weeks and I used that book, I wrote all my letters, I sent it out. And 6 weeks later, I got a call from Penguin Putnam that they wanted to buy my book, which was like a needle in a haystack. I mean, I literally was in a closet pulling stuff out to have a garage sale. And I get this call. And so I had a contract, and they gave me an advance. And then about a year later, the economy kind of fell. The economy fell. Bottom fell out of the market. I don't really know what happened. I'm not familiar with publishing, but my book they had assigned an illustrator. My book never got produced or published. So after a time, the rights revert back to the author. And I had pursued it occasionally off and on over the years. The kids were little. I was working full time. It was tough. And then COVID happened, and I just thought, well, if you're going to pursue this, now seems like a good time to do it.
Yeah.
And then I went the same route, the Children's Writers and Illustrated Handbook. And wow, things had changed in the 20 years since I had sold my book. Now they want to know, how are you going to promote it?
Yeah.
How many followers on Instagram or Facebook or whatever do you have? What are you going to do for them? And I am not really comfortable with social media. And so and then they, it had really narrowed who they would accept submissions from. So now a lot of them that I had submitted to 20 years ago wanted you to have an agent, which is a whole other submission process. And then it's just the whole thing, like when you're a teenager and you're trying to get a job, or after you graduate, whatever, and you're trying to get a job and they're like, well, we need someone with experience. And you're like, well, how am I going to get any experience if no one gives me a job?
Yeah.
So, same with the agent thing. Well, how am I going to produce a book anyway, whatever. So I just decided to scrap it and look into self-publishing. And I was a little bit stymied, honestly, about how to go about it. But I had a friend who recommended an illustrator to me, who I now count as a dear friend, highly talented, skilled artist, but her illustrations weren't just quite the right fit for the story. And so I worked with another illustrator, and again, the illustrations just weren't quite the right fit for the story again. So then the same friend connected me with a third illustrator, and I worked with her. And once I worked with her, it still took a year to get the illustrations to where I was happy with them. And so I would say, as a children's book illustrator, as a children's book author, it really is important that the illustrations speak to you. And it's one of the things that is a plus about self-publishing. When you're handed out, I went to the Portland Book Festival last year just to see what that was about. And I remember one of the authors saying that she was surprised by the fact that she really had no control and no say over the illustrations. That once you sign that contract and hand it over, the publishing house makes all the decisions and you have no say.
Yeah.
So, but on the plus side, you get to help make your vision come true. But you really do need to, I'm going to show you an example. So in the book, even though I found an illustrator that I thought was a good fit for the story, I really, really fought hard for every page of illustration. So, well, maybe I'll come back to that. So my story is about a mother duck who has inexplicably lost one of her eggs. She's sitting on her nest and waiting for her 10 eggs to hatch, and she feels a wiggle, 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 and she hears a crack, 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 and she jumps up to look, and she counts, and there's only 9 eggs in the nest. And so then she goes on a frantic search. She calls Papa Duck over, puts Papa Duck in charge of the 9 eggs.
That's bold.
The 9 ducklings, sorry, the 9 ducklings. I know, good luck to Papa Duck, right? So I think Mama Duck maybe had the easier assignment. So she runs off into the swamp to look for her egg, and she spies an egg. She sits on it. She feels a wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Here's a crack, crack, crack. She jumps up to look, and eek, it's not her lost duckling. It is a baby alligator.
Oh, there he is.
So then she continues on and keeps sitting on these eggs that don't turn out to be hers. So she's a somewhat daffy but very determined mother duck. And so that's the gist of the story. And I wanted to show you that first because this was the illustrator that illustrated my book. That's kind of hard to see.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
First, can you see that?
Yeah, interesting.
That was her first illustration.
Wow.
And then this is what I fought for.
Oh,
so
very interesting. Yeah.
Even if you find an illustrator that you like, it's still a lot of work to get the illustrations to where you would like them to be. So I'm sorry.
When you're doing it yourself, you do have that control, and so there's the advantage when you're doing a book. I'm traditionally published, as most of you know. I've done a few things on my own, but it's definitely a lot more work doing it on your own, and you're just in charge of everything. And that's a lot to be in charge of.
Yeah.
Right?
I had no idea when I really got into this 4 years ago that it would take me 4 years.
Wow.
So, and the last year has only been the business end of it. And what I finally realized is that producing a children's book, it's not unlike as if you had invented a new toaster. So if you invent a new toaster, you need to come up with the most perfect model that you can, right? In my case, my product is a book. I want my book to look as good as it can. And then all the things that you don't know about a book, about dedication pages and Library of Congress numbers and copyrights and ISBN numbers. And you need ISBN numbers for the hardback and the paperback. And if you publish on this and if you publish on that. And then the whole, where am I going to get it produced? How much am I going to charge for shipping? How much are they going to charge me for shipping? How much am I going to sell it for? Am I going to sell it internationally? Am I going to sell it locally? How am I going to market it? How am I going to do the social media? How do I do a website? How do I design a website? Just a website alone, there's like a million things that you have to answer and decide on. Do you want your website, how many drop-down buttons do you want? How are you going to take money for it? How are you going to do the taxes and the accounting? And does Vermont have a sales tax or not have a sales tax? How do you do that? It's the whole business end of it that is absolutely overwhelming. And I just now, this last week, had a chance after 4 years to try to catch up with myself and filed away 80 file folders. 80 file folders for this one children's book. And I think the only way I got through this process was through ignorance, kind of like the pageant. I was completely ignorant, had no idea what I was in for. And so every day provided a new challenge, and I'm still learning. This is my very first
Sure.
podcast. I mean, every day. So it is. I
Well,
don't.
and it's very interesting because maybe it's just, well, you didn't know what you were getting into, because sometimes you can be saying, I've got a mountain to scale here, and that can be intimidating. But sometimes you just need to jump in and you go one, how do you climb the mountain? One little step at a time. And, for you, books, I always talk about your book baby. You were the equivalent, you were book pregnant for 4 years. As a long to be working on bringing forth a book, but it's a beautiful book. And can you tell us the title? One of the ladies said, what's the actual name of this book?
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Show us the cover again.
Okay. So it is. Oh, let's see. I'm trying to get it. So Mama Duck's Lost Duckling. This is very.
That's it's so adorable. Mama Duck's Last. What's the age group for this book, would you say?
I'd say 3 to 6. Oh, okay. That's what I was going to say. So then at the end of my book, which makes the book a little bit different, is I decided to add. So because I wanted my book to, I wanted the nests that Mama Duck encountered to be as kind of true to life as the animals that are nesting in those nests. And so I did a lot of research on the animals. I've got an alligator, a python, a sea turtle, and an eagle. So I did research on all of those animals so that I could get their habitats and environments correct in the book. And
well, that's in the book, right at the back. There's almost this little encyclopedia thing about the different animals, right?
Yes. And so I have done a couple of story times now. And so what I'll do with the kids is, they really like the wiggle, 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 crack, crack, crack. And they're invested in seeing if Mama Duck can find her lost duckling. And then at the end, I just learned so many interesting things. Like a mother eagle, I'll ask the kids, how big do we think an eagle's nest gets? Is it as big as a toaster? Is it as big as a bicycle? Is it as big as a car? And an eagle's nest can get to be as big as a car and weigh 4,000 pounds. And I didn't know that. It's because they come back to the same nest every year and they build up the nest. I'll tell them, we have 52 teeth. We're born with 20 baby teeth. And then we get 32 big people teeth. How many teeth do we think an alligator has over the course of a lifetime? 100, 500. Every once in a while, someone will guess 1,000, but it's 2,000 teeth they have over the course of a lifetime. So
the better to eat you with, my dear. Alligator.
Yeah. So I ended up putting some of those facts in the back of the book. So,
so that's an actual bonus with the book, you guys. And Janice has very kindly agreed to give a book to some lucky person here in the U.S. who's with us live. You always have to be hanging in for the whole chat to qualify. So when we're done, I'll have Gerhard, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and we'll pick a winner. So if this sounds fun to you and you would like to be able to get a copy of this book, that would be great. If you'd like to go out and buy a copy, my mother-in-law, she was so smart. She would buy for Christmas all year long. And I do that too. I have my little gift cupboard. And so if you're buying ahead of time and thinking Christmas, hey, Christmas in July is almost here, you guys. You might want to run out and where can they find the book?
Thank you. So the hardcover is available on my website, janicebangs.com.
Bangs, like bang, bang. B-A-N-G-S, you like on your hair. Okay.
Yes, that's what I always do, like bangs. Yeah. And then the soft cover is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Okay, so there you go. And I'm trying to remember who it was. Was it Pam who said, you are doing great for your first podcast? Yes, it was Pam. Thank you, Pam, for complimenting and encouraging Janice. I think she's just fabulous to talk to, isn't she, you guys? So we are very, very lucky that I just feel like I scored getting Janice talk with us tonight. So much fun. And Janice said she has more books that she's thinking about in the works. Hopefully it's not going to take you 4 years to do the next book. Now
Oh, Lord, I hope
the
not.
system, you're going to be ready to roll.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to give people encouraging takeaway, because this did take you a while, if somebody is considering maybe they want to write a children's book or whatever the thing is that they want to do, maybe they want to be in a pageant, and play the violin. Anyway, what do you have some parting advice for anyone who's listening to just maybe encourage them?
Yeah, I would say, so I hired an illustrator, and I hired people to help me along the way because I eventually realized I couldn't do. So I would actually like to give a little bit of advice. So to anyone who, Fiverr is a great resource. That's where I found my illustrator. Fiverr is
Fiver. I thought you said fiber. I thought, oh, we're in health now.
Yeah, I know it's
fiber is.
I know if we had font, it's Fiver.
Okay.
R, 2 R's.
Okay.
Fiverr. And then Reedsy, Reedsy, for help with like copywriting or any of that, and probably marketing. So I would like to, both of those were very helpful to me. No, I'm not getting paid to say that. I just want to help people. Those are people that I used as a resource. And then I would say, even though you hire other people, I did eventually hire an editor, and she and I would tussle sometimes on the wording. Stay true to yourself is what I would like to say, is honestly, is to thine own self be true. And if it doesn't feel right to you for your book or your story, it's your book, it's your product. Just stay true to yourself
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good advice. And again, guys, I think Janice is such a good example of this. Don't look at the whole big mountain. Just start doing one step at a time, and you will, you'll get to the top. So don't give up. And hi to some of you, those that came in late. I'm sorry we're about to wrap up, but I do hope you'll go back and listen to all of this, because you don't want to miss Janice's miscongeniality story of how she made it as a pageant clown. So, you're going to want to circle back and listen at least to the beginning of this interview, because it's just been so much fun talking to you. And guys, I hope you'll look out for her book. I hope this will encourage you to whatever project you're thinking about doing, just go for it and do it. Just do it. And so I'm getting hungry, you guys. So that means, because I'm hungry, we're going to quit. So first we're going to say bye to our Instagram people. I thank you so much, you guys, for joining. If you missed out on any of this, it's going to be up on my Sheila Roberts YouTube channel, and you can watch the whole video there. You can watch other past videos there too, so you can catch up on all these fun chats we've been having. So we'll say a quick goodbye to them. And then for my Facebook gang, for those of you who didn't see the announcement, don't forget we are doing, this is May, You Be Blessed month, and every week we are picking a winner to receive a little goodie. This week, Gerhard is on the search for a gas card, and I think $25 gas card. So if you know someone in need, or you just kind of really would like to put your hat in the ring for that, you'll find the place where you can post on that, and we will announce a winner on Friday. So anyway, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I'm losing track of my days of my life. I think I have something scheduled for next week. Stay tuned for announcements. The only time we won't be doing this, of course, is when we're off to Shreveport for Gerhard to get his diploma for getting his doctorate. So we won't be doing that, but I have some fun stuff lined up for you guys, and we'll hope to see you soon. Have a great rest of the week, and bye, and thanks, Janice.
Thank you, Sheila.